Our top story this hour, a Qantas flight travelling from Auckland to Sydney has landed safely, but after issuing a mayday call over the Tasman Sea. The plane is believed to have experienced an engine failure a short time after its departure from Auckland. It took off about 4 hours ago, and here you can see the moment Qantas flight 144 touched down in Sydney around 3:30 local time. Emergency services, including 30 police, team of paramedics from New South Wales Ambulance and 12 fire brigades were placed on standby as a precaution. New South Wales Ambulance has told us in the last few minutes there were no injuries on board and that this response was standard procedure for this type of mayday call. We don't yet have official word from Qantas with any further detail, but there was a similar incident in Perth in July. I spoke earlier to Neil Hansford, an aviation expert, where I asked him how often it is these kind of mayday calls are made. How often does this occur? How often are emergency services scrambled because one of the two engine fails and in this sort of precautionary area?
Not very much in this country, and as you say, the Perth is the last one, but certainly we always err on the side of caution to make sure that all the facilities are in place to maintain life and have the best outcome. So the fact that the fire brigade and the airport services and New South Wales Ambulance are in preparation, they practice this drill very regularly, and the word mayday is often unused. I doubt whether the captain called mayday, 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 but yes, it is an emergency procedure and it's being handled in an appropriate way.
Live now to Gabriella Power at Sydney Airport. Gabriella, what's the latest?
Andrew, what I can tell you is there is relief from passengers who are on board that flight. Let's just listen in to one of the passengers who was on board.
Yes, but I've come from England to New Zealand to Australia and had no trouble, so I'm happy to be here.
There you have it, happy to be here. We have just had the first few passengers walk through the arrival gates. All of them so far have had big smiles on their faces. They all seem quite calm. I was told from one of the passengers that the pilots actually issued some alert, some statement to the passengers on board. They said that there were engine problems, but they weren't aware until they landed that there was an actual engine failure. So some relief, but they were not that surprised when they saw emergency crews, fire crews on the tarmac as a safety precaution. I'll just see if this passenger would like to speak to us as well. Hello, were you on board that flight from Auckland to Sydney?
No, I've just come in from New Caledonia.
Okay, there you go. Welcome home. Anyway, we'll try again. No doubt there are a few more people because it's understood that there was around 140 passengers on that plane. By the sounds of things, it would have been quite concerning, but the tone from everyone so far is that they are quite calm and it was handled quite well. Everyone has had some positive things to say about the pilots on board and also the crew. We do have a statement from Qantas giving us a bit more of an insight into exactly what happened. While a mayday was initially issued, this has now been downgraded to a PAN, which is a possible assistance needed. We'll share more information about this incident once the aircraft is on the ground and has been assessed by our engineers. But of course, that aircraft landed safely at 3:30 this afternoon, Andrew.
So I guess the key question is going to be what caused the engine failure, and outside of that you can see what happens in these circumstances. I guess there's no need, Gabriella, to panic the passengers by saying, hey, we've just issued a mayday, but the pilot there keeping them informed, talking about that situation with engine problems.
Absolutely, and it sounds like that is the way that they've handled it, that the pilots have communicated with passengers, but they haven't told them that they've issued a mayday alert. And you can understand why. You can only imagine the panic that would cause passengers knowing that there is a possible engine failure. As you said, we are still waiting to find out the exact details of what caused the engine failure on this Boeing 747 aircraft. But as we know, Qantas has a near perfect record, one of the best records in the world when it comes to safety and passenger safety. So pilots and crew, they are trained for this exact scenario.
Well, we saw you and other reporters there. You broke in live to speak to that passenger from the aircraft. Have many others come out from that aircraft and spoken? And if so, have they had much to say, or are they yet to emerge from that customs hall?
We've seen about half a dozen, I would say, walk through the arrival gates that were on board that plane. You heard me earlier speak to a passenger. Took my bet, but wasn't actually someone who was on that aircraft. There is a fair bit of movement around me at the moment. Of course, this is a big story because it's such a big, it's such a rare incident. But I do believe that we have an audio grab to play for you now of someone I spoke to a little earlier.
The fire engines were there and the pilot said, oh, we've got to park because we had an engine problem. And then when it was inspected, he then said, oh, no, the engine actually failed. So we didn't know the several steps, that we didn't have one engine. And then I looked on, and when they said you can turn on your phones, I turned on my phone and my wife had called about, 18 times, have you landed, have you landed?
So you can see that the passengers are quite calm. They seem quite happy. We are seeing a few more passengers walk through the arrival gates now. We might just try our luck again to see if anyone wants to speak with us.
Good luck there, Gabriella.
Excuse me, were you on board that flight, the Auckland flight that had
Sorry, we're French, so it's very difficult for me.
Oh, you speak French? Okay, no worries. Do you speak English?
You want me to speak English, but it would be awful. What's wrong with you? Yes? What do you want me to say?
Were you on the flight which had the engine failure?
Sorry?
On the flight from Auckland which had the engine failure?
I don't understand what you're asking to me.
Where have you come from?
Oh, from New Caledonia.
Oh, from New Caledonia.
Bad luck for you.
Unfortunately, that's 2 from 2, Andrew. I haven't had any luck on live television. Maybe next hour I'll have a little bit more luck for you. I can assure you we are speaking to passengers.
That is my sort of luck, Gabriella, right
was that,
there.
Andrew? Sorry?
That is my sort of luck, frankly. That's the sort of thing that happens to me. That is news making live, ladies and gentlemen. We'll hear from Gabriella later. It was interesting to see that reaction from that passenger, Gabriella, to have a gentle warning from the pilot and turn on your phone and say, oh no, or mayday. Well, quite the moment that would have been.
Absolutely. I can only imagine what that would have been. You hear, half an hour or so ago that it was possible engine problems, but then it's not until you actually land that there was a mayday alert issued. I suppose that's part of the protocols that the Qantas pilots would have been following, but you can only imagine the relief and the concern they may have felt once they did finally touch down, and to see the emergency crews right there at the tarmac as a precaution. But of course, that good news that the Qantas flight landed safely, right on time, 3:29. It was a minute late, I believe. I will just bring up that Qantas graphic again. We have that statement from Qantas that gives us a little bit more insight into exactly what happened. While a mayday was initially issued, this has now been downgraded to a PAN, possible assistance if needed. We'll share more information about the incident once the aircraft is on the ground and has been assessed by our engineers. And that's what you can imagine will be happening. We'll have, of course, the Transport Bureau investigating into exactly what happened. We are still yet to hear a few more comments from Qantas and safety authorities as exactly how this occurred, how dangerous it actually was with one engine running on that 747 aircraft. We know the aircraft was around 10 years old, but of course we do know, as we've mentioned, that Qantas has one of the best safety records in the world, and it sounds like it has been handled exceptionally well.
All right, Gabriella, we'll check in with you later. Thanks very much.